Hello and welcome to All Things Rift. The big news this week came from Massively.com in an interview with executive producer Scott Hartzman, who, when asked about the state of the game, said, "We're hemorrhaging players left and right, and I'm not sure we could pay them to stay. At this point, unless something changes, we may have to close down altogether by May. It looks like all our detractors may have been right after all." And welcome to the April Fool's edition of All Things Rift. Yes, today is April 1st, and Rift is alive and well and kicking, folks. Now, I would like to apologize in advance. I've run out of time a bit, so I don't have the time to do the normal video that I do, so there's going to be a lot more text, but I do have a little something special for you at the end. So getting right to the news, it's all about patch 1.1. Now, so much is going on in patch 1.1 that there's just no way for me to cover it all, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and kind of cover the points that are most interesting to the most people. So the first point is they've introduced in-game video. You can take up to 3 minutes worth of video, and if you have a YouTube account, you can post your video directly to YouTube. So this is probably pretty cool for people who know that they have 3 minutes of video that they want to record and post to YouTube. It's a nice feature. And the next thing that's of big and important news is you can now report AFK players in Warfronts. And an AFK player can be removed, and I'm quoting here, quote, "when enough of the team has reported someone as AFK," unquote. Now, I gotta be honest, it's good that they can remove AFK players from Warfronts. Everybody's been wanting this, but on the other hand, you actually need people to take the time out to report them. Hopefully they'll get a better system than this in place, but hey, it's a start. And moving over to Rift events. Rift events no longer track player contribution against other players. Now, I'd never even realized there was a problem with this, so I'm not 100% certain what they mean, but it looks like what's happened is that if your DPS spec wasn't as high as somebody else's DPS spec, then you were kind of getting hosed on your Rift rewards. And evidently they are now giving you rewards based on your activity level over the course of the Rift, which is really how it should have been in the first place. And looking at PvP combat, there's been a big change in PvP combat. Abilities now only check for caster facing their targets at the start of the cast. So the cast will still land if the target moves behind you while your casting is in progress. Now, I think it's not too much to ask for the caster to be aware of where the target is and turn appropriately. You can turn in place without interrupting your cast. So, to me, honestly, this seems like too much of an easy button for the attacker and diminishes the player's ability to defend himself in PvP. So I'm not a big fan of this one personally, but then again, PvP is not something that I've had time to delve into. So hopefully all you PvPers out there actually like this one. And there has been much ado about plaques, and this has kind of been hopping on the forums now for a couple weeks, wondering what they're going to do with plaques. Now, the endgame currency for all the high-tier items are plaques. Plaque drop rates were increased in this patch, but the cost of the items also increased, and they increased even more than the drop rate. And so a lot of people are screaming that, they aren't going to be able to get the cool gear that other people got as easily. Now, honestly, this only matters for a handful of people successfully running in-game content currently. The remaining 95% of the Rift population, they don't even know what a plaque is and won't care about this change when they start collecting them. But on the bright side that I'm sure everyone will be happy with, regarding those top-tier items, more Tier 1 and Tier 2 armor was added with this patch, and there's even more promised in upcoming weeks. And finally, I come to the dreaded nerf. Oh, the nerf. We all hate them. The Rift people, the people at Tryon, were kind of implying that, hey, they'd never have to do nerfs because all they ever wanted to do was create fun classes. And I guess the skeptics, I actually thought, hey, that sounds awesome because I hate nerfs. And there were a lot of skeptics, and the skeptics have proven to be a little more correct, it seems, because we're getting nerfed. Oh boy. Well, here's what has been nerfed so far. It's actually the warrior class has been a little brutalized, in particular two souls, the Riftblade soul and the Reaver soul, and I'll just go over those briefly. So starting with Riftblade, first we have Rift Surge. Now this went from an immovable debuff to a removable debuff with a curse removability. It also went from a 10-second cooldown to a 30-second cooldown, and they lowered the damage. So this was an amazing PvP killer, and now it's rather ordinary. Next, we had Burning Blood. Now, what Burning Blood does is it returns some of the damage to the caster when they cast a damaging spell on you. It went from returning 15% of the damage done by the spell to 10 to 30% worth of damage of your strength. So this really could be a buff or a debuff depending on what spell is being cast. Then we have Improved Freeze Armor. This went from dealing damage for all fire effects to dealing damage only for Riftblade fire effects. And finally we have Flame Spear, and this is the one that people are just screaming bloody murder about. It went from no cooldown to a 6-second cooldown, effectively making those people who were playing their Riftblade warriors as a ranged character, now they're melee, and they're stuck with it. And next, taking a look at the Reaver, first we have Plaguebringer. Now this is a talent that basically allows for your damage over time, your single target damage over time spells to affect up to 5 nearby enemies. Now it used to do full damage to those 5 nearby enemies, and now it does, quote, less damage. Now that's kind of odd because it doesn't state how much less damage, and so I think until people start theory crafting it out and really taking a look, no one really knows. Probably some people have figured it out by now, but I don't know. Also, threat generation has been increased, so what they've done is they've basically made sure that this is still a good tanking power, but not the uber damage power that it used to be. Next, we have Grisly Works. This self-healing talent was actually buffed, but was moved from being unlocked at 16 points to being unlocked at 26 points, making it not available for lower level Reavers or for those people who don't want to go deep in the Reaver soul. Reavers still have self-healing, just not as much from levels 16 to 25. Finally, the next one is Soul Devour. There's 2 left, actually. And Soul Devour went from being a 150% increase of Soul Feast healing to only 50%. And finally, Power from the Masses. This went from giving you decreased damage taken per nearby enemy up to 10% to decreased damage taken per nearby party members. So basically it went from a good anytime buff to a buff that really is pretty much just for group PvE or PvP. So basically what they've done is they've destroyed a lot of the damage in these Riftblade and Reaver souls. Now, I personally haven't played any of these souls, but I have looked around the forums to try and figure out what was going on, and by all accounts that I could find that seemed to be, fair-minded, these were really, really overpowered classes. They could just mow down mages, especially combined together. These classes could just mow down the mages. And it looks to me like Trion is really targeting this particular combo because they took the damage of one down and the healing of the other down, which made it particularly overpowering in PvP, but they still wanted to make sure that you could still tank with these in PvE. I don't know. I mean, we'll wait and see if there's more tweaking to be done to Riftblade and Reaver. Now, as far as the outcry from the people who play these souls, it's pretty serious. And, some people I can understand, because you have those people that they started with these. They happened to pick them right at the beginning. They fell in love with their classes, they had a great time, they've been playing them for months, and now they're kind of a different soul. They no longer work the same, and for those people I feel truly sorry, because that would kind of stink. But I think there's those other people, the ones that they try a class and a different class and a different class and different soul combos until they find the one that is absolutely OP, and then that's the one they play. And suddenly those people don't want to play anymore. They want to take their game and go home because they can no longer dominate. And those people, don't feel bad for those people at all. But at any rate, that is the major changes to the patch. Oh, and of course the River of Souls event. I don't have time to cover that today, so I will be covering that next week. But the River of Souls event is very cool, and I look forward to covering that. And as I said, it'd be a little bit short today. It's probably not quite as short as I thought. But at any rate, that's it for episode 4 of All Things Rift. And I'm going to leave you with the world premiere of my very first music video. And I just want to dedicate this video to all the Riftblade Reaver combination people out there that are taking their toys and going home, never to play Rift again. This one is for you. I see you driving round town with the build I love, and I'm like, forget you. I got some change in my pocket since leaving WoW, and I'm like, forget you and forget WoW too. If I was richer, still wouldn't be with ya. Now ain't that some Rift? And though there's pain in my chest, I still wish you the best with a forget you. I said I'm sorry, I sure liked my Bommy, but that don't mean I like Flame Spear. I guess I'm an Xbox and you're more like Atari, and the way you build your game ain't fair. I pity the fool who falls in love with you. Nerf. And ooh, well, I got some news for you. Why don't you go and tell your programmer? I see you driving round town with the build I love, and I'm like, forget you. I got some change in my pocket since leaving WoW, and I'm like, forget you and forget WoW too.